Tonight, tragedy in Pine Hills. The sheriff says a murder suspect shot a mother and child moments after shooting two members of a local news crew.
Journalists shouldn't have to watch their back and be concerned about being attacked while they're simply doing their job.
The ambush happened in the middle of the afternoon, just hours after investigators say the suspected gunman left another woman for dead.
The same suspect, Mr. Moses, is responsible for all those shootings.
We have live team coverage, bringing you the latest developments on this difficult story.
This is WFTV Tonight.
And we begin with that devastating update impacting our Central Florida news family. One Spectrum News 13 employee has died after today's mass shooting.
And the other remains right now in critical condition after the sheriff says a gunman went on a rampage this afternoon near Hialeah and Harrington Streets in Pine Hills. The suspect is also accused of shooting a mother and a 9-year-old little girl inside their home. And we've learned sadly that that little girl has died.
Deputies say the gunman was a wanted murder suspect. This is a new picture we just got of him shortly after his arrest. As we've reported, our reporter Felicia Ashley and photographer Yulin Hodges were in Pine Hills to cover the shooting death of a 20-year-old woman that happened this morning when deputies say the suspect returned to the scene of the crime and opened fire. Felicia and Yulin immediately went to render aid to the Spectrum News crew until first responders arrived.
We've been covering this story all day long, and our live team coverage continues tonight. Sabrina Maggiore is digging into the suspect's long criminal past, and Demi Johnson is learning more about the victims. But tonight we're going to begin with Ashley Edlin. She joins us live with a closer look at how this all unfolded. Ashley.
Well, Martha, Sheriff Mina tonight laying out this timeline for us. He tells us it started 11 o'clock this morning on Hialeah. That's where he says his deputies found this woman, and she had been shot and she was dead. And just hours later, more chaos unfolded from there. Sheriff John Mina saying tonight that shooting on Hialeah Street this morning was just the start.
At 4:05, we received 911 calls about another shooting at that location and a shooting nearby.
The sheriff saying two men, a Spectrum News 13 reporter and photographer who were there covering the shooting this morning, were shot. Sheriff Mina not naming them, but saying one of the men didn't make it, the other in critical condition at the hospital.
It's hard to know if he was targeting this news crew. Again, that'll be all part of our investigation.
He being 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses, the man Sheriff Mina says is responsible for the shooting early this morning on Hialeah Street, shooting at the news crew, and this.
On Harrington Street, a woman and her 9-year-old girl were also shot inside of a home. It is unclear why the suspect entered that home.
The sheriff telling us during the press conference that little girl passed away.
Tragically, we have just learned that the 9-year-old has also succumbed to her injuries.
He said Moses was found close by where this all started. Right now, he says Moses is in custody and isn't saying much about why this all happened. But the sheriff says he's no stranger to law enforcement.
At 19, he has a lengthy criminal history to include gun charges, aggravated battery and assault with a deadly weapon, burglary, and grand theft charges.
Now, the sheriff telling us tonight that Moses has been formally charged for that shooting that happened around 11 o'clock this morning on Hialeah Street. He was telling us that they are expecting additional charges for the shooting that happened in the afternoon. So, of course, we are going to keep you updated on this developing story. Live in Orange County, I'm Ashley Edlin for WFTV Tonight.
And we're learning more about the victims in today's shooting. Deputies have confirmed the suspect shot a total of 5 people today.
And at this hour, we know 3 of those victims are dead, including the 20-year-old woman from this morning, a 9-year-old girl, and a News 13 reporter. 2 others, a News 13 photographer and the child's mom, remain in the hospital. Demi Johnson is live at the hospital right now. And Demi, you've seen some intense moments there tonight.
Craig, there really are no words for what we've seen here tonight. And in talking with other reporters, you know, we've all kind of agreed none of us really know how to talk about this, because that reporter and that photographer were doing exactly what we're doing right now. They were just doing their jobs, and nobody teaches you how to handle this or how to talk about this. But while we were standing here, we did talk to someone who wants Central Florida to know who that reporter was and how much he meant to this community. We aren't going to share his name or photo out of respect to his family and News 13 colleagues. But we can tell you he was a UCF student who lived for this job. While in college, he was UCF's president of the Radio, TV, and Digital News Association. He also interned at multiple television stations here in Central Florida before eventually landing a job at News 13. His college professor, Rick Brunson, came here tonight to comfort his family and friends. He described him as energetic, enthusiastic, and someone who truly loved this industry.
He loves journalism, and he loves it because of the difference that he always feels like he can make in whatever community he's in by being on the street with a microphone and with a photographer telling the stories of the community. That's what he's about, and that's why I'm here.
And have not identified that 9-year-old girl who has died or her mother who is in critical condition. Deputies say they're not sure if today's shootings were targeted. And we continue to see family and friends of the victims showing up here to the hospital and other news crews showing up to comfort each other during this very difficult situation. Live in Orlando, Demi Johnson for WFTV Tonight.
All right, Demi, well told. According to court records, the suspect, Keith Moses, has been arrested more than a dozen times.
Sabrina Maggiore continues our team coverage for you tonight. Sabrina, the sheriff says at least one murder charge was added to his list today, but clearly more charges will be coming.
Martha, when the sheriff announced those charges, he also said that Keith Melvin Moses had a lengthy criminal history. We started digging into that, and we got our hands on some records that showed over a dozen different arrests. At only 19 years old, Keith Melvin Moses has a lengthy criminal history. The charges began in 2018 when Moses was only 14. Many of those records are sealed, but an FDLE arrest history shows they include several domestic violence battery charges, attempted robbery with a firearm, and grand theft of a motor vehicle. Most of those charges were dropped or adjudication withheld, with Moses sentenced to community service. It also shows several probation violations, with one sentencing provision listing him as low risk. His most recent arrest came in 2021. An arrest affidavit shows that an officer was patrolling Pine Hills when they came across a vehicle where Moses was a passenger. That affidavit says an officer noticed people in that car were smoking cannabis. It says as deputies approached that vehicle, a stolen firearm was tossed from the car. At the time, all 3 people in the car had ski masks on them. Moses faced a misdemeanor charge from that arrest. And we're still working to learn more about Moses' criminal past. We're going to continue to dig into that. We do know he is facing a charge for the murder of that 20-year-old woman and will be likely facing additional charges for the 4 others that he shot at today. Reporting live in Orange County, I'm Sabrina Maggiore, WFTV Tonight.
All right, Sabrina, thank you. And of course, we're going to continue to push for answers about the suspect. We're asking if he knew the Spectrum crew and knew if they were with the media and what brought him to the house with the mother and that little girl. Count on WFTV Tonight for continued updates on this tragic story. We're also getting reaction from as far as the White House. You can see all of that on WFTV.com.
And turning now to another big story tonight, police are working to determine the motive behind a murder and attempted suicide in St. Cloud. It happened this afternoon at an apartment complex on Sergeant Graham Drive in Neptune Bay Circle. Investigators say they received a call from a neighbor who was flagged down by a child. When that person followed the child back to their apartment, police say they found a man with stab wounds inside. He was later pronounced dead. That neighbor called 911, but they were not the only person who did.
The police department received a second call from a female who stated she received a text message from the suspect of the resident believed to be a domestic partner inside the apartment, advising she had killed her husband and was going to kill herself.
When officers arrived, they found that suspect locked inside the master bathroom with cuts to her wrists. She was taken to the hospital where police say she is listed in stable condition. Detectives have not released the names of the people involved. They say another child was found at the apartment office. Both are safe and in police custody.
Also tonight, the Volusia County woman accused of shooting and killing her terminally ill husband is no longer facing a first-degree premeditated murder charge. Today, a grand jury indicted Ellen Gillen on assisted self-murder. Daytona Beach police arrested her last month for the shooting at an Advent Health campus. Since then, she's been denied bond twice. During that most recent denial, the judge decided Gillen is a danger to the community. As Channel 9's Chantel Navarro reports, today's indictment changes how this case is handled moving forward.
Chantel, thank you. And developing now at 10, I-75 northbound is back open after a semi carrying an oversized load hit an overpass, sending concrete crumbling below. It happened at the Southwest 66th Street Bridge. The northbound lanes were shut down all day as crews cleared debris and assessed the stability of the overpass. They opened up late this evening. Some drivers were stuck for more than 4 hours. Crews eventually got the truck moved and started on temporary repairs to the bridge as people wondered what caused the truck to get stuck in the first place.
There should be no reason he hit that unless his load itself was not correct. But he's cleared everything else unless he was only going 2 miles.
FDOT says at this hour, the Southwest 66th Street Bridge seen here still closed while repairs continue tonight. Structural engineers have inspected the bridge and say it is safe to drive over and under.
Still ahead, only on WFTV tonight, we spoke to a famous YouTuber who's accused of grooming a local woman when she was a teenager. Coming up, why a local woman's case against him could change the future of the internet. But first, we have new details about a Flagler County Schools paraprofessional who was hospitalized after a violent attack by the high school student she was assigned to assist. That story when we come back. Tom?
Well, high humidity out there. Another round of some late night fog mixing in with smoke. So we'll be talking about that and just how close we could all be to 90 degrees tomorrow.
Sky Witness 9 on Channel 9 Eyewitness News, bringing you closer to the scene during breaking news. Brought to you by attorney Dan Newland.
From the beaches back inland to the theme parks, there's a story happening. There's weather happening. We could break it down to a community.
We cover what's happening now, what's going to happen later in the day, and the long-term ramifications of breaking news or just a big story for the day.
And we do that same thing with traffic. It's not just the live conditions impacting you in that moment when you get out the door.
And we're working together to get that breaking news to the viewer.
When you're following us and when you're with us at home, there are no surprises. We got you covered for the day ahead.
A 17-year-old is in custody tonight after Flagler County deputies say he attacked a woman over a gaming system.
It happened at Matanzas High School yesterday. We have video of the 17-year-old being arrested. The sheriff says the attack could have easily turned into a homicide. Jeff Lefkulich has more on what investigators say set that teen off.
I don't want to go to jail.
Look at me. Look at me.
I have more important places.
The 17-year-old student, who we are not naming or showing at this time, seemed unfazed by what had just happened moments earlier. According to the Flagler County Sheriff, the teen threw his paraprofessional to the ground at Matanzas High School, knocking her unconscious, then punched and kicked her multiple times, all because she took his Nintendo Switch. The sheriff says he watched the video of the attack multiple times.
Couldn't believe, first off, how fast the attack occurred, and then how violent the attack was. And it was, quite frankly, it was shocking. But it is an example of what every school district in this country has to deal with.
The teen, who is 6'7" and 270 pounds, towered over the aide, who the sheriff called petite.
I have some deputies that are pretty tall, but most of them are not 6'7", and most of them don't weigh 270 pounds. So, you know, that's why we train how to de-escalate.
And the sheriff calls this a prime example of why it's important to keep deputies in schools. The sheriff says the district is looking at supplementing SROs with a guardian program.
They're not as well trained as my deputies, and so, you know, that's one of the other aspects that the district will have to consider.
Jeff Lefkulich, WFTV Tonight.
And just this month, 9 Investigates Demi Johnson looked into a rise in bad behavior by Central Florida students. Oftentimes, students are targeting teachers, and that's prompting many educators to leave the profession entirely. Florida is now short some 5,300 teachers.
State lawmakers say their goal for next month's legislative session is to fulfill the governor's priorities. Those include limiting lawsuits in the state, expanding school choice through state-backed vouchers, and blocking investment decisions involving environmental, social, and governance standards. The legislative session starts March 7th.
Check your accounts. Drivers who use ePass should see rebates today from the state's new toll relief program. The program gives drivers a 50% discount if they go through at least 35 tolls a month. The Central Florida Expressway Authority says rebates from January are now being posted to accounts, and they'll be posted on the 15th of each month from here on out. SunPass customers should also see rebates in those accounts.
Okay, time here now, and warm day.
Warm day, 87. The warmest we've been so far this year is 88, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So we are going to be breaking that, I think, tomorrow. Very close to 90. Here's a live look outside. Now we have 72 degrees. Our live camera high atop the SunTrust building, or former SunTrust building. Looking north, temperature today 87, and right now we're still in the 70s, where we're cooling down the 60s. Humidity levels have risen, and again, we have smoke across the area from prescribed burns. This will be the case for probably more than a month or so down the road. We're going to continue these burns here as we try to avoid the big wildfires and just do the control burns. But this will lead to some areas of what we call super fog, where you have fog, which sometimes can be very dense in its own right, but then you add in the smoke particles, which can make it really thick. And we had some of that early this morning over across parts of Lake County. It was very dense, I know, from pictures I saw around Claremont. You can see 3 o'clock in the morning, this will be areas of fog. And our forecast model just showing visibilities here, but it doesn't really take into account the areas of smoke, which are just kind of here and there across the area. Much warmer than normal. Welcome to Florida. 7-day forecast, weekend always in view. Near 90 tomorrow. If we don't get 90 tomorrow or Friday or Saturday, I think we could be as warm, if not just a hair warmer, toward the end of next week too. Greg?
All right, Tom, thank you. Your next airport screening might involve matching your face to your ID. Some say the technology could cause serious problems for certain travelers. Still to come, we're taking our questions directly to the White House. Plus, beach days will soon look a little different for some dogs. The generous pledge that's making a test run possible next.
Weather from Severe Weather Center 9 is brought to you by the law offices of Attorney Dan Newland.
Closed captioning ensures all viewers have access to our programming here on Channel 9 and provides a critical link by delivering important local coverage with stories that impact our community. Closed captioning on Channel 9 is brought to you by Attorney Dan Newland.
Volusia County is launching a pilot program to test allowing dogs on the beach.
As we told you last night, the area they plan to use is by Centennial Park at Ormond by the Sea. The pilot program will be covered by an Ormond Beach couple who, during the meeting, pledged $100,000. City staff is still working to figure out how the program will be paid for beyond the test period. They say the cost to add another animal control officer would be around $100,000. They would also consider increasing fines for people who break the rules.
We need to have data. We need to have facts. Were there a lot of tickets issued in the area? Was there compliance?
Beach Patrol says last year it responded to more than 3,000 dog-related calls. The county council says they likely won't have a final decision on exactly how this pilot program will work for at least 2 more meetings. Well, if you own a dog that loves to ride in the car with the windows down for some fresh air, you should know it soon may be illegal in Florida. It's all part of an animal welfare bill making its way through the state Senate. This new measure would ban owners from letting dogs sit in laps and sticking their heads out of the moving vehicles. Experts say this is an act of safety to prevent your pet from jumping out or getting foreign objects in their eyes. We are continuing to stay on top of a developing story, a shooting rampage that killed 3 people, including a media colleague and a 9-year-old little girl.
We have several reporters covering the story right now, and if we get any new information, we'll bring it to you right away. Again, we are not announcing the names of the deceased until, again, next of kin has been notified.
Plus, new questions about a high-tech tool used by the TSA, why some believe facial recognition cannot be trusted.
And thousands of veterans who served our country are now fighting PTSD. Ahead, the research lawmakers believe could help those vets heal.
Plan ahead for changing weather and road conditions with an hour-by-hour forecast.
Plus alternate routes around current trouble spots and the roads to avoid that day.
Channel 9 Eyewitness News this morning. Tomorrow starting at 4:30 a.m.
We continue our coverage tonight of that tragic shooting out of Pine Hills. Deputies say 4 people were shot this afternoon. A Spectrum News 13 reporter and a 9-year-old girl died from their injuries. Another News 13 employee, a photographer, and the little girl's mother remain in critical condition tonight. This is video from the scene as we brought you live breaking coverage on Eyewitness News at 4, 5, and 6. Deputies say the gunman was a wanted murder suspect. This is him, 19-year-old Keith Melvin Moses. Orange County Sheriff John Mina says Moses is responsible for the 4 shootings this afternoon and another deadly shooting early this morning on Hialeah Street. The sheriff says Moses has been formally charged for the shooting of the woman this morning, and is he expecting more charges for the shootings this afternoon? Martha.
And we're getting a closer look at the files from a cold case murder that happened 8 years ago. Last week, the mother of Shelley Arnold spoke with us to bring more attention to the 2015 case. Today, Eustis Police spoke with us about the case and showed us the case files, including crime scene photos. Shelley's body was found in a field on Doan Avenue. Investigators say it could have been a crime of passion. Her face had been removed and a tattoo had been cut off her body, but investigators didn't find blood anywhere.
It does not appear to us that she was killed in that spot, just due to this. It is almost like a kind of a staging type scenario. There's not any kind of evidence that it occurred there.
At this point, they don't believe this was the work of a serial killer, since they haven't seen or heard about any similar murders elsewhere. The last tip they received was in 2021, but they're hoping for more to come in to help them solve this case.
A small group of protesters in Central Florida are urging the governor to stop the execution of a death row inmate. The protesters gathered in front of the Orange County Courthouse this morning ahead of tomorrow's scheduled execution of Donald Dilbeck. He was convicted of murdering a woman in a Tallahassee parking lot during a carjacking in 1990. They say resources used for the death penalty should go towards victims' families instead.
When we say to the murder victim family members, wait till we kill the guy and then you'll feel better, is we're asking murder victim family members to put their healing process on hold.
Governor DeSantis signed Dilbeck's death warrant last month. If the execution proceeds, it will be the 100th execution since the death penalty was reinstated in Florida in 1976.
Some state lawmakers, Greg, are backing proposed changes to a law passed after the Surfside condo collapse. Here's a look at the aftermath in June of 2021. That collapse killed nearly 100 people. Yesterday, a Senate committee voted in favor of a new bill that would ease a law signed last year. The proposal would allow buildings within 3 miles of the coastline to be inspected after they've been occupied for 30 years.
Another plan being considered by state lawmakers, Martha, involves your purchases. Credit card companies could face fines up to $10,000 per violation for tracking firearm and ammunition sales in Florida. Under a measure approved yesterday by a Senate committee, in September, Visa joined MasterCard and American Express in announcing plans to categorize gun shop sales as well.
Well, the TSA is now testing new airport security that uses facial recognition to match travelers through their IDs.
But critics say technology designed to keep us safe could be causing unexpected problems for minority passengers. Channel 9's Washington correspondent Kirsten Garris looks at the issues and what's being done to resolve them. And many Americans say they are not comfortable with artificial intelligence in healthcare. A Pew Research survey found 60% of Americans wouldn't be comfortable with a healthcare provider using it to diagnose their disease or recommend treatment. However, 65% say they think using AI to detect skin cancer could improve the accuracy of a diagnosis. And some said they thought AI could reduce racial bias in healthcare.
Greg, tonight a new proposal in Congress is calling on the VA to study the impacts of cannabis for vets dealing with PTSD and chronic pain. Washington correspondent Samantha Manning reports from D.C. with details on the measure that has support from members of both parties. The Biden administration wants to make home ownership more affordable. The federal government is trying to do that by lowering mortgage insurance premiums. They currently stand at 0.85%. The change would lower it to 0.55%. This applies primarily to low and middle income buyers because the reduction only impacts loans insured by the Federal Housing Administration.
Veterinarians want local pet owners to take extra precautions against the doggy flu. They say there has been a recent outbreak in the Volusia County area.
Yeah, reporter Q McCrae explains how you can protect your furry loved one.
A Central Florida woman claims an online personality groomed her when she was just a teenager.
I don't think it's ever going to be like a completely healed wound.
Next, why this young lady is naming online giant YouTube in a first-of-its-kind federal lawsuit.
Well, it is quite the contrast. Bitter cold, wind chills below 27 below, and a big blizzard, including 72 in Orlando. We've got a big change coming, but temperatures keep climbing. That's just ahead.
A Marion County woman has filed a first-of-its-kind federal lawsuit against one of the biggest companies in the world. She's taking on YouTube and its parent company Google, accusing them of benefiting from sex trafficking. She claims she was groomed by one of the most famous YouTubers and his spouse when she was just a teen.
And tonight, that YouTube star is responding only to investigative reporter Carla Ray. In that exclusive interview, he says he doesn't even know the woman who named him in that lawsuit. We reached out to YouTube and Google's media relations team by phone and email. We are waiting to hear back. They have not filed anything in response to the lawsuit either, at least so far.
Tom, here now with our warm forecast. What did you say it was 86?
87.
87.
Yeah.
Martha's birthday.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know it's been a tough day.
It's been a tough day here.
Tough day for birthday. Temperature is going to be a little hotter tomorrow. Let's kind of check and see where we stand right now. We're still in the 70s. In fact, we're about 3 to 4 degrees warmer now than last night. So we kind of already have, we've already a couple rungs higher on the ladder, as it were, heading up tomorrow to approaching 90 degrees for the first time in February in 61 years, if we get there in Orlando. 70s over in Leesburg. The winds are light to calm here. This is going to be an area to watch for, some areas of fog, but temperatures are a little bit warmer, so we have to cool down the air enough to start getting condensation coming out, some low clouds. But right now, visibilities are good. However, with smoke in the area, we're still expecting to see some areas of fog, primarily west and down toward the south. Also, we've had persistent fog just off the coast of St. Augustine and Flagler County, so that could also be an issue for you early tomorrow. It is what it is temperature-wise. It is at least dry heat for now. 90 for a daytime high tomorrow, your 7-day forecast. The weekend always in view. Temperatures in the 60s, highs in the upper 80s to near 90. And some areas tomorrow, Jared, could hit all-time record highs for the month of February. Over to you.
All right, well, tonight we had war on I-4 men's basketball. Things didn't go well for the Knights in their first meeting. After the break, we'll see how tonight's rematch ended. A big game down in additional financial arena. South Florida in town to face war on I-4 rival UCF. Tonight's meeting is the second of the season and could be the last for a while, with the Knights heading to the Big 12 Conference. Heritage, back-to-back state champions. Congrats on a great season.
Yeah, no doubt. That is awesome. Nice to have some uplifting news to wrap things up on this difficult day. Thank you, Jared, and thank you for watching. We'll be back here tomorrow night at 10.
Be sure to watch Eyewitness News this morning at 4:30 on Channel 9 and at 7 a.m. here on TV 27. You get your weather and traffic info every 10 minutes. Greg and I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night at 10.
Take care.